So from yesterday, when we look at your item for lunch or dinner today, as we can see, it's meatballs. And these meatballs are high in protein. How do you digest those proteins in your body? In other words, you chew it up mechanically, that's mechanical digestion, then you swallow it, it's in your stomach, and now you have begun your chemical digestion. We want to state how those proteins get broke down, because there are two different types of cells you need to talk about. There are whatever they secrete, and then how that interacts, and then how it breaks down these proteins. So who wants to start? A bolus is a chewed up portion of your meatballs. That bolus, whatever it is you're consuming, you chew it, you swallow it, that chunk of whatever it is you swallow is called a bolus. So that is now in the stomach. What's happening? Well, yeah, it's breaking down, but how's that taking place? Because I guarantee you're going to have to be able to describe this. And I don't know what one person might say in great detail, maybe isn't as bad as what someone else might say. But what type of cells are we talking about first of all? And we gave you a clue to keep them separate yesterday. Easy money? Okay. Okay. Problem? Okay, so you can jump in on this now. A bolus is whatever it is that you're swallowing when you're chewing. So we got meatballs today, or whatever it is you may have for lunch or dinner. How are those proteins getting broken down? We talked about it yesterday. You're chewing it mechanically, but how's the chemical digestion? Because this is probably the most important part of this chapter. Okay? Nope, that's starch. There's three types of cells in the lining of your stomach. You're right. There's gastric pits that will sense, okay, we're nauseated or we have food in there. You're right. You're getting closer. We gave you an idea how to keep the two cells separate. Because we said something about chef. I said if you take the I out, you get chef. But if you put the I in, you get what type of cells? No, we're putting it back in, the I. Chief cells. Those chief cells secrete what? You got a 50-50 chance. It's either an inactive enzyme or it's an acid. Okay? It's an inactive enzyme. What is that inactive enzyme called? Okay? Well, let's back up a little bit then. Okay? You're talking about those okay, here's those gastric pits that you were referring to. Okay? Those are associated with, okay, is there a type of distress that we're possibly going through? Okay? You may feel nauseated. Your gastric pits sense that. Okay? Then, here's the two types of cells you're referring to. Here's your chief cells. Okay? Now, yes, these secrete digestive enzymes, but are they active though? No, they are not, because it does not become active until this secretion comes in contact with this. So how did we say to keep these two separate? What can you do? Something about the A. Right. Keep your A's together. Okay? Since chief does not have an A in it like parietal does, there's your acid. Okay? So now, what might those chief cells secrete? It's an inactive enzyme called what? Pepsinogen. Okay? So the chief cells secrete that, called pepsinogen. This is, like I said, probably one of the most important slides, or we said star, underline, whatever it is you need to do with these two slides. Okay? The reason is because of this universal enzyme. Because almost all types of dietary protein, okay? There's another one, another enzyme called trypsin. Trypsin is another enzyme that breaks down proteins, but it's not as universal or as common as pepsin, okay? So this is where we left off with yesterday. We said these gastric juices, they will be continually secreted, but it's regulated by hormones, okay? Why did we say that these secretions have to be managed in the stomach? Because once it's got into the small intestine, what can happen? Doesn't mean it will, but what can happen? Call it peritonitis because what's happening inside of your small intestine? Well, it can, but more importantly, it's kind of like that acid is starting to poke holes in there. And then that will lead to infection inside your peritoneum. That's why it's called peritonitis. Okay. So how are these regulated? Okay. Again, it's by hormones. So what happens then, this turns the acid factory on. Okay? It's a hormone that increases the gastric motility. What can result in a problem with that is some people may be hypersensitive to this, so then they continually secrete more and more and more of this gastric juice. For some reason, this hormone may cause this to be out of control. Okay? So what people may take is different products. Chemically speaking, do we know what it means to be an acid? I don't know. I don't think we talked about it here in physical science. And we might refer to it in general chemistry. But how about over in there? Do we know anything about chemistry from physical science? None. Okay. And that's not whether you can or can't understand it. That's not your problem. That's what we want to deal with here. Okay? That means acids are what we call proton donors. Okay? Because can anyone name some acids besides hydrochloric? It's in your battery, in your car. Starts with an S. Sulfuric acid, okay? The reason that we call these proton donors is if we back up just a little bit here, this is what's happening. A proton donor, okay, that means this HCl gets split two parts. You have a negative chloride ion and then a positive hydrogen ion. So that that proton then becomes what we call proton donor. Proton donors are acids. So this gets broken apart. If you have HCl, H2SO4, H3PO4, all of those are common acids that are known as proton donors. Okay? So again, what we see happening is if someone takes a product maybe called, I want to say it's Tegament, HB. Okay? What that does, I believe it blocks the receptor sites for those hydrogens to continually have this acid secreted. So it helps control the regulation of acid inside your stomach. Some of them block the receptor sites to slow the production. Others maybe just help raise the pH. There's many different types of products that are utilized or used to control these gastric secretions inside your stomach. And again, they all work in different ways because not everyone has the same type of factory making materials inside. Chances are they're the same, but again, that's what how boring would life be if everyone was the same? Okay, when it comes to your different types of hobbies, we've had this conversation before where my parents make me watch this all the time, and I'm talking about your lightsabers. Oh, I thought you said your parents make me one. Maybe it was your sister. But, okay, I'm talking about Star Wars. I enjoy the Star Wars franchise, the Star Trek. I'd like to think I have the Transformer the jury's still out on that. I still think the second one. I haven't seen the last one yet, the Last Night or whatever. Okay. I think the fourth one, don't tell me what it is. I know it's Transformers 1, then Rise of the Fallen, then Dark Side of the Moon, then fourth one was okay, I can't think of it. Age of Extinction. That's right. You're thinking Avengers. Age of Extinction, and then 5 was the Last Night. Okay. Well, what's the difference between Cybertron and Megatron?
Cybertron is a planet, Megatron.
Oh, that's right. That's where you get their energy cubes from the cartoon was Cybertron. Yes. Yeah. Now, in the cartoon series, I thought for sure that those dinosaurs, not only they transformed from robots to dinosaurs, but they could all transform into one large.
I just recently watched one of this.
So that does happen. Okay.
Yes.
Now you got to take into account this is well over 25 years ago, and I still remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Civil War, I think. I never got into the Avengers.
I just finished watching Power of the Primes and Titans Return.
Okay, but anyway, that's all. But my point is, some of us are talking about this science fiction, these cartoon Marvels deals. Some people could say, I could not care less about that. And that's what I said. That's what, when we have this diversity, that's what makes things interesting. What about if we all liked the same things? That would be pretty boring. And that's what makes us individuals. And I think we do a good job of accepting each other for our differences. Especially, I think it's nice when you get to these classes where you had all through elementary, then in middle school, you're getting through your required classes, now you're in electives. Now you look in here, you don't have the rest of your classmates in here. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. It doesn't mean anything one way or another. It just means you're in here because you want to be, okay? So, gastrin turns the acid factories on. So if there's a hormone that turns it on, chances are there's a hormone that does what? That turns it off or shuts it off. Okay? Now, this is one of the things that I'm kind of getting at earlier. Could we describe this? Okay, now that we've gone through it, can you describe that pepsin-pepsinogen mechanism? Yes? No? A little bit. But we just went through it together. Okay? All right. Fair enough. Gastrin turns it on, cholestockinin turns it off. Are your pages in order? That could be a problem. Okay. $12. There's what today? Oh. Well, I thought I answered that. It's today, but how many are running today is what you're asking? 12. Yes. Well, we're not worried about that. I because I don't I try not to talk when it is you're writing unless I'm explaining something. But yes, we have 12. Okay. We don't have any seniors. We have Allie and Jordan. We got two freshmen, Nevaeh, and no, three freshmen, Nevaeh, Haley, our freshman, and Kayla. Okay. So I said I couldn't remember if it was two or three. Then Reese, Ava, Abby, Ben, Jackson, Laney, Jared. That's who's all in it. Okay? Alright. So, since I asked you three, digestion of proteins, how does that take place? I said it's probably the most important part of this chapter. That's right. Okay? Alright. So, that's kind of what we're looking for. Okay? Alright. So, not all, this is what we would consider a primary organ, okay? Primary organ of digestion. Now we're going to start moving on to the secondary organs. So, how would we establish the difference between a primary organ and a secondary organ, do you think? And you might not know. A primary organ means that food is actually moving through it. A secondary organ then means it's adding to it, and in the form of enzymes or hormones or anything to that effect. Because when we think of insulin, okay, is that a hormone or an enzyme, do you think? Insulin, do you think it's a hormone or an enzyme? It's a hormone. Okay? So, the reason we bring that up is the pancreas, okay? This is a secondary organ, all right? So, then when we talk about these substances here, you're going to have different types of enzymes that break down different types of substances. So, if we see this amylase, we know it's going to break down starch. And where it comes from then is the pancreas, because we also have amylase secreted where? Way before, yeah, your saliva glands, which you have 3 sets of, also secrete amylase. And one thing you may be asking yourself, maybe yes, maybe no, is the idea of why do we have to call it pancreatic amylase? Well, maybe look at the next thing you may be writing down. We have more than just amylase that the pancreas produces. And yes, it's probably the next thing that you're going to be writing down, which is pancreatic what? Lipase. So the amylase breaks down starches, and it comes from the pancreas. That's why we need to be specific with that. We don't want to just say amylase, because then you're telling me that source is coming from something different than the pancreas. Because amylase is also produced in your mouth, and it comes in the form, or comes through your saliva glands. So pancreatic amylase is then added in the small intestine, because you also have this lipase then that breaks down fatty acids, okay? Your fats, your lipids, all of those substances. So having a healthy pancreas, of course, is going to be vital to having a healthy way of breaking down the substances in your diet, whether it's proteins, whether it's starches, or whether it's fat molecules. Okay? Now, when we look at this concept right here, okay, fatty acids, are those bad for us? Do you think? Yes. No. Why not? Because we associate them. Some people may even take this in a supplement. It's yellow in color. Fish oil. Fish oil is high in blank 3 fatty acids. Starts with the letter O. Omega-3 fatty acids. Okay? And it's those types of substances that help promote good brain health. Okay? It's mainly associated with again, working with your nervous system and keeping that healthy. That's the only thing that's coming to my mind right now. Oh, heart healthy too. I knew there was another one. Some people may take these omega-3s or fish oil not only for their brain health, but also for their ticker. Your ticker is, of course, your heart, okay, which can lead to cholesterol levels in your body. Is all cholesterol bad? No. So, do we want high density lipids, HDLs, or LDLs, lower density lipids? Do we want high or do we want low? Are you sure? You're positive. Yes. We want high density lipids in our diet. I really don't have an answer for that. It's the low density lipids that are not good for you. LDLs. Probably. Yep. All right. Then, of course, when we talk about nucleic acids, this just breaks down into different nucleotides. So your pancreas is, we're more worried about the two main functions of the pancreas, which is pancreatic lipase and what it does, and pancreatic amylase and what that does. Okay, so we want to make sure that we can finish this chapter by Thursday because, as you know, this is quite a long chapter. So I want to do this one. Yeah, this will be the last one. We'll start with the liver tomorrow. Okay, so like we said earlier, there is no universal enzyme that breaks down all proteins. Okay, there is a very common one. This is the lesser common of the two. Okay, but pepsin is by far the most common enzyme to break down proteins. So, what do you suppose happens? Trypsinogen is an inactive form. That trypsin activates to enterokinase. Okay, so you have an inactive form, trypsinogen. Okay, gets activated by trypsin, causes it to change the chemical makeup into an enzyme called enterokinase. So, we've talked about, I want to say, is there 5 enzymes that, 4? Okay, pepsin, pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, now enterokinase. You're responsible for all 4 of those. How they're made and what it is that they do. Okay? Is anyone looking at that and thinking that is a Herculean task? We need to know pepsin, how it's made, which is pretty precise. There's a lot of information with that because it includes your chief cells and your parietal cells. Pepsin's 1, pancreatic amylase is 2, pancreatic lipase is 3, and then finally enterokinase is 4. Now, when we talk about amylase, yes, we know that's found in your mouth because your saliva glands will secrete that. Gesundheit. We will pick up with the liver tomorrow. So, just for my own curiosity, I'm just kind of curious because it's not up here this week, but a week from tomorrow, okay, that's the suggested due date. So the papers that were handed to you, have we started? Do I? Hmm? It's the short answer papers for this chapter.
When did you give it to us?
Last week. Okay. Just look to see if it's in your folder. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, that's why we want to keep on top of these things. Alright. I'm sorry, I thought I handed them out to everybody.